60, The Answer. Brought to you by Pearshell Financial Group.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Nobody loves literary references in the context of politics more than me, which is why I make them, and which is why I was drawn to this column by Ben Sixsmith at Spectator.us, the Spectator. Could Tom Wolfe have invented the Jussie Smollett story? And he cites Radical Chic, which is a classic. But the difference is, well, I guess this is a true story, too. It's a true story about a hoax. The opening of Radical Chic, and this is not verbatim, it's from memory. It's been a while. But Leonard Bernstein hosting a fundraiser for the Black Panthers in his Manhattan penthouse. And he says to one of the Black Panthers, "Aren't you disgusted by the opulence you see around you?" It's his house, right? His place. "Aren't you disgusted by this?" And the Black Panther says, "No, not really." And Leonard Bernstein says, "I am." And it just goes to Wolfe's great ability to, lampoon the arrogant, the cultural narcissist. And that is a perfect segue to a discussion about the Jussie Smollett story and so much of our culture these days. Pleased to be joined by Ben Sixsmith, who is a writer for Quillette, as well as Spectator USA and the Catholic Herald. Ben, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, and by the way, we'll get to this. Could Ray Bradbury, the author of Fahrenheit 451, could he have invented Christian Amanpour? I want you to think about that. We'll come back to that later. But for now, why did Tom Wolfe call to mind Jussie Smollett and this escapade in Chicago?
I mean, I think if you read the story, you could assume that it was a posthumous tale by Tom Wolfe. It was very similar to his previous plots. He wrote a lot about how American life is governed by status and the need to compete for attention and influence and cultural power. And we could definitely see, not just with Jussie Smollett's attempt to concoct this story, but with the credulousness with which it was received, that this wasn't just concern for what was thought to have happened, but this was concern for the cultural impact that it would have and how much an event like this could be exploited.
And you go on to sort of chronicle other events that sort of address sort of the same cultural phenomena or cultural infirmities, depending on your perspective, including the Covington case in D.C.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Covington case was all about symbolism. As soon as anyone saw that little clip, if you were on a liberal side, it was going to tick all the boxes of everything that outraged you. The kind of racial implications, the sheer smugness, the apparent privilege of the boys involved. You didn't really have to ask yourself what the context was because it made so much emotional sense to you.
So, all right, so we got, could Tom Wolfe have invented Jussie Smollett? I've asked if Ray Bradbury could have invented Christian Amanpour. How about this one? Could Kurt Vonnegut have invented Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Green New Deal and our politics of a real estate developer, reality show host going up against a 29-year-old bartender who wants to deindustrialize America? Now that takes some creative writing.
Yeah, I think that could have been Philip K. Dick as well.
Okay, right.
You said in your piece that it would have been a perfect Wolfian ending if the hapless brothers were arrested for assault while the multimillionaire actor proclaimed his innocence. Did you ever think that was a possibility of happening?
It doesn't look like it will happen now. It certainly would have made sense to me at the time, but I think that would be maybe a bit of a step too far. It feels like Smollett supporters are attempting to create this kind of weird agnostic space there was an interview with Maxine Waters where she said, we'll probably never know all the details of this event, as if there were many interpretations that could be drawn from it. When to any disinterested observer, it's very obvious what happened.
So, I mean, just thinking about this just in sort of a timeline, I mean, do you think that we're going to someplace different than where we were culturally when Tom Wolfe wrote Radical Chic or Bonfire of the Vanities? Is this just a hamster wheel, or are we descending into, a new low when it comes to American culture?
I think there's definitely increasing polarization where if you speak to one person about an event, they could have a very different idea of what happened from someone else. For example, with the Justice Smollett case, the inability of his supporters to admit that he did anything wrong. In that Maxine Waters interview, she was talking about his future, and she almost said she hoped he'll be forgiven. But then she realized that if he was going to be forgiven, he would need to have done something wrong in the first place. So she changed it into that she hoped he would be successful. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the future many people look back at Jussie Smollett's career and imagine that actually he was victimized in some way. And then the other half of America looks back.
It's just mind-blowing.
I
mean, that we have the same facts in front of us, and yet we see the story so differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you see, it's a bit like the old story about the elephant, where if you have 5 men patting different parts of the elephant, they think it's a very different beast, even though they're all essentially touching the same animal, because we only see the facts we want to see, and everything else is invisible to us.
Well, the interesting thing, though, I think you were getting to is there's a knowledge of what the facts are, but there's a refusal to admit it because there's a higher order to be served. And the responses you're getting from Smollett supporters, including that young actress on the sitcom Blackish during the NAACP Awards when her show won an award, she didn't say Jesse's innocent. She said, I stand with Jesse. Right? It's about I stand with. I'm not going to make a comment on his innocence or guilt. It's just I'm on this side of the skirmish line because you're on that side.
Absolutely. And because I think for them, the case has a kind of emotional truth, where even if they might admit that in this case nothing happened, it reflected a kind of broader truth about American life. And so I think they feel in defending Smollett, they're defending their kind of cultural narrative rather than just an individual victim or perpetrator of a crime.
Well, I think that's exactly right. That's what's happened in some quarters where you have the response to Smollett is, well, you want to talk about Jussie Smollett, let's talk about the Chicago police and their history of violence against black men and so on and so forth. They want to turn this on to a discussion they want to have. They don't want to have just a discussion on the 4 corners of the Smollett case. It's got to, they got to bring in other things because so much attention is being paid to it. Now is the opportunity for us to prosecute our grievances.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
He is Ben Sixsmith, writer for Quillette, Spectator USA, and the Catholic Herald. Check out his column, Could Tom Wolfe Have Invented the Jussie Smollett Story at spectator.us. Ben, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ben.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.